Arsenal took a huge step, didn't they, to winning their first title in a very long time with that win that we saw against Brighton yesterday. Manchester City, though, dropping points. They only manage a 2-2 draw against lowly old Nottingham Forest. Nedum's with us. That's embarrassing, isn't it, Nedum, considering the money you spent in January to make this title push that you can't even beat Forest?
Oh, I've missed you, Dan Thomas. I really have. Thanks for bringing me back on straight after this result. What a guy. Yeah, it's hugely disappointing, but not necessarily even because they were playing against Forest, because, you know, I've been on the other side of this. When you're a team down near the bottom, like, you can find some results like this towards the back end of the season because the desperation is there. But I think from a City perspective, or any side that wants to win a Premier League title, if you're going to take the lead twice, especially at home, it shouldn't really matter who you're playing against. You should be able to see that over the line. And it was a massive boost for, say, Arsenal's title credentials. Because I thought, you know, maybe there's still time for City to do this and do that. But then I looked at the league table. Arsenal's played 30 games. I'm not sure why they've played that extra game, but it's 8 games left. 8 games left for them to win a league title, and they can afford to drop points now. Whereas before, it was almost like they were on that tightrope. I think it was themselves and City. Whichever team would have won all their games between now and the end of the season, they would have been champions. But now, it's very much back in Arsenal's hands. You know, and you've got to say that the consistency they can show, being able to grind out a result away to Brighton like we saw yesterday, they're very deserving of it. But yeah, there is a huge disappointment from a City perspective, because from when they went 1-0 up, when they went 2-1 up, you thought they'd have enough, and with the amount of time left in the game, if you want to win a league title, you should be able to see games through like that come this time of the season.
What's been wrong with City? Why are they so far off the pace now, Nedum?
No, they're not that far off the pace, because if you remember, there was a point, I believe, when Arsenal... Don't do that, Dan. When Arsenal had won... I think Arsenal had won at home. Don't do that. Don't do that. And it was when Liverpool played City at home and Szoboszlai scored that free kick. At that point, the gap was going to be 9 points. And to be honest, given the weeks before, it felt like the gap should have been bigger and could have been bigger. Then all of a sudden it dropped all the way down to 2. And even though City weren't necessarily looking hugely impressive, relatively speaking, to their potential, the gap was just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And there were being questions asked of Arsenal. You know, you look at the fact that they dropped points away to Wolves, for example. So you're thinking, well, what's going on here? And City were going about their business. They were catching. Belief was growing. But then it's just a reminder that, like, these results at this point in the season, sometimes they can feel, you know, far bigger than they would have done maybe a month ago. So City haven't been bad, but they haven't been able to do as much as Arsenal have done in that sort of key moment. And as you see there with the 7 points, obviously City have a game in hand which they'll have to win. But the fact that City can win all their games and still finish second, I think that shows how significant that result was yesterday, because that wasn't the case before the game started.
The good thing is, though, Manchester City are taking it very well. Not blaming anyone else. Bernardo Silva, after the game, not happy with the officiating, in particular, of course, that Erling Haaland penalty that wasn't given. This is what the Portuguese had to say about the officiating. I just think that all the 50-50 decisions this season have gone against us. All of them. And it's quite frustrating, because at the end it makes a big difference in the title race. He's right, isn't he, Nedum? Everyone's against Manchester City. It must be so hard.
Oh, boy.
That's exactly right, Dan Thomas. He's exactly right. And I support the captain of my football club. He is exactly right.
Yes.
And you are wrong to criticise him.
How dare I?
And do you know, to be honest, this is, how dare you, but then this is the Dan Thomas way. I think that's one of the things about football in itself, though. Like, every sort of player, every fan base, they'll believe that they're not getting enough of those 50-50 decisions. Everyone will believe it. But surely that can't necessarily be the case for everyone. Otherwise, like, you know, it ends up just being fair.
Yeah.
I can see why he's disappointed, and I can see the emotion of it, the significance of, say, come the end of the season, what it would mean to not get penalties like that in a game that's so tightly contested. But it's just the way the football goes. Like, looking at that, I think it's a penalty, but the referees thought otherwise. And now, as you said, they dropped 2 points. Arsenal have got a 7-point lead, and the title's not in their hands anymore. So I think if I was in his position, I'd probably be a little bit upset as well, to be honest.
We heard Rodri as well complaining, and then you've obviously got other fan bases saying, well, look, Gay should have been sent off against Liverpool. It swings and roundabouts. We talk about this on the show a lot.
Yeah.
Do players really believe it?
No. I think they feel it in the moment.
Okay.
I think they feel it in the moment, and we've spoken about this at post-game press conferences where there's a manager or player is asked to speak. You get the very raw emotion of that moment, that the disappointment of dropping points in a game that you needed to win to keep your title chance, or at least push. alive. But once the dust settles, listen, okay, maybe it could have gone our way, but let's be honest, so many other things during the course of the season did.
Right.
Complaining about it is really nonsensical. But you speak to players immediately after the game. That's the reaction you're going to get. It's always going to be emotionally charged, even if it is a little bit unfair.
We know Dr. Shaka Hislop is a very level-headed man. Is he speaking on behalf of all players then, Aidan?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Dr. Shaka speaks only for himself and nobody else. I think obviously, like, after the game, the emotion is there. But for the way that, like, football works and fan bases work, like, they would have spent so much time watching Arsenal and other teams near the top. And every decision that they think is 50-50 goes Arsenal's way, it's, well, obviously that should have gone that way. But then it'd be the same for Arsenal and other teams, whoever you're up against. You can't just casually watch games of football when you're very much involved in, every sort of, like, second of it. And also, like, if it's a 50-50 decision that goes your way, you will believe that it was always the right decision anyway.
Yep.
No one remembers at the end of the season all the good luck that they've had. They just remember the decisions they feel that should have gone their way. And I think that's pretty much me speaking on behalf of everyone else, except for Dr. Shaka Hislop.
OK, so yesterday, our fine doctor had it at 78 to 22 percent-wise with regards to Arsenal winning the title. Stevie went 60-40, I think. Nathan, where do you go with this?
I think I'm probably closer towards Shaka, to be honest. I think it's more an 80-20 type issue, because for City, like, they have to remain perfect. But some of the games that they have, I can see sort of roadblocks with that, especially with the Champions League potentially going on for at least another round and, potentially an FA Cup run as well. So I could see them potentially dropping more points. But the fact is, Arsenal have it in their hands. They can afford to play against City. They could lose by 20 goals to City potentially in the weeks ahead. And it might not make any difference whatsoever. And not least of all, in my opinion, those last 4 games for Arsenal, the games where you'd really fancy them to be able to do enough to win that, to sort of see things through. So, yeah, I'm probably going to go 80-20. Obviously, it's not impossible and football can change very, very quickly. But Arsenal dropping points and dropping that many points as they're already in the 30-game bracket, I just don't see it, to be honest.
I just seen that running. That's pretty nice for Arsenal, isn't it?
It does.
I've seen that before. Wow.
Okay.
There we go. At least we don't have to discuss that at length. Arsenal going to win the title, and if they don't, they've really mucked it up, haven't they? Of course, they went to Brighton yesterday. People thought that maybe that could see a swing in the title race. However, with Manchester City dropping points and Arsenal getting the 3 against Brighton, all the talk has turned to the style in which Arsenal have gone about their ways, particularly yesterday against Brighton, where a lot of time was wasted. This is what Fabian Hertzer, the Brighton manager, had to say. There was only one team that tried to play football tonight. I will never be the kind of manager who tries to win it that way. The Premier League has to make clearer rules for time wasting because they have to protect the referee. Sid Lowe joins us as well to join in this discussion about if Arsenal have any obligation to play football better or not to time waste. Nadim, I just want to start with you on this, though.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because they sit atop of the tree, and the way that they've done it at times hasn't really made some people happy about it. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're an Arsenal player, fan, anyone associated with the club, who cares? The referee's going to referee the game however he sees it. If he thinks they're taking too long, he'll try and speed them up. But if he doesn't, then play right into it. I think all of us who've played the game before at whatever level, you will push it as far as you can push it. And if there are times when you need to slow things down when you're under pressure, do it. If you're winning a game, you want to kill some time, kill the clock. We've encouraged people to kill the clock before. And if it's also a case of, you want to take as much time as possible to set up a set piece, then so be it. It's your prerogative. If someone wants to tell you otherwise, then fine. But the only person's opinion that matters is the referees. And if they start to get punished for it, then fair enough. But I think that game yesterday probably plays into the narrative a little bit more because Brighton are the quickest team in terms of their restarts and so on. They want the ball in play as much as possible all the time and play a certain style, which, at times can be very different to Arsenal. But one team's in mid-table, one team's top of the tree, potentially on the way to winning the league title. So the way that Arsenal do it, if everyone was doing it, it would probably affect the league in a certain way. But they've got very, very clear objectives of what they want to achieve this season. And the way that they do it is going to be completely down to them. And if you have a problem, beat them, make them rush, make them be behind so that they have to speed things up. But if you have no control over that, unfortunately, it's just the way it's going to have to be.
Who would have thought Atletico Madrid would be trendsetters, Sid?
I thought you were going to bring Getafe into the equation there. They're the real trendsetters in Spain.
Silly the Spanish cliques. Like, no, let's stick with people that teams that we're watching. Atleti, of course, are renowned for these dark arts. Is it a problem for football overall?
I suppose. Look, without necessarily taking this into the Arsenal territory as a broader question, you say a kind of a conceptual question. By the way, from Arsenal's point of view, correct me if I'm wrong, and I say this from Spain, not following English football as closely as any of you lot do, but over the last 2 or 3 years, hasn't there been this constant thing of saying, Arsenal, they've got a soft underbelly, they don't see it over the line. It's even more reason for them to say, right, well, you know what? However we do this, we're going to do this. I think it does matter a little bit if people turn off, if people genuinely aren't interested in it, if people genuinely find it boring, then it's problematic because people will switch off the TV, they will stop going to games and they won't watch it anymore. But for the most part, I think actually football fans, of course we want it to be fun. Of course we want it to be an open game. Of course we want it to be exciting. But most fans go to the ground desperately wanting their team to win. I don't think there will be a single Arsenal fan who says, yeah, we won the league for the first time in goodness knows how many years. But I tell you what, we were a bit dull. There's no reason for them to think that, and none of them will.
This is, of course, the big talking point yesterday. Don Raya going down for 2 minutes. Shaq, you wouldn't do this, would you? Be back on your feet, getting on with the game.
Okay, if that's the direction we're going to go. Listen, I have no issue at all with Arsenal. They're playing within the rules, and albeit we can frame it as the dark arts as much as you like. But to Nathan's point, you're playing against a side who want to get the ball back into play quickly, who play at a certain tempo. The way you counter that is by killing the game, killing that momentum. And if it means David Raya staying on a little bit longer than he should, then so be it. If I'm involved with Arsenal in any capacity, as a player, as a fan, part of the staff, the tea lady, I have no issue at all with what Arsenal is doing. I also think that there's this huge overreaction to Arsenal's style of football because they're sitting top of the league. All of a sudden, it spelled the death of Premier League football, where I'm not sure where that come from. We're just on the back end of the better part of a decade of Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and the football that they brought that was winning titles. Nobody complained about them being
but they were
boring.
Fun. They were fun
right.
to watch.
We've had one season of Arsenal doing this, and all of a sudden, no, football is never going to be the same again. How we reach here so fast? Look, Arsenal do what they need to do to bring their first title in over 20 years. So be it. My hope is that they evolve from there. But to somehow this mean, well, this is how football is going to be played from here on in for eternity, I just don't see that overreaction. I don't know how that narrative has become.
Nathan, you can see why, unlike Xhaka, there is a concern that this could be a trend moving forward. We've seen it in more than one Premier League games, obviously throughout the season, where it seems to be about set pieces and not conceding, where the entertainment level seems to have dropped.
Yeah, that's interesting. That I don't necessarily believe in the entertainment level dropping overall, but I think the sort of focus on set pieces, it's like, I think it has become a thing, and I think in my opinion, why it's become a thing is because in the last, say, couple of years, I don't know if Shaq would agree with this, but most goalkeepers these days now are more or less redundant from corner kicks because a team is going to whip a ball into the 6-yard box and they're going to be upwards of 10 people in that space. So a goalkeeper's advantage of being able to come and use their arms and catch the ball, before you know it, there's no space for them to be able to come out and do that. So some of the crosses and stuff that come into the box now, it's more about sort of percentages, just pure physicality, trying to get first contact, second contact, keep the ball back in the zones. And I think I remember having played against a Sam Allardyce team when he was at Bolton, and it was about that. It was about percentages, and some might say it was ugly, but it's deeply effective. But now that the Premier League is in this position, it's not just, say, Arsenal do it. There are lots of teams that are doing it in that manner. Like the other day, I think it was Villa decided to try and counter Chelsea's corners by leaving 4 players up. Well, not many managers and teams feel comfortable doing that. So before you know it, there's a crowd scene just right in front of a goalkeeper. And the Premier League itself, for all the quality that it has, the individual quality, the collective quality, is still becoming that time now where if you want to score goals, here's a long throw, sling it into the box. Here's a corner kick, just put it into the space. And I think when there's more creativity to it, it feels nicer. But if it carries on in this manner, in my opinion, that becomes the sort of the USP of the league itself. And I think that's when it will become quite disappointing, because I like to see, in some ways, and I'd never really say this, I think I'd like to see goalkeepers probably like supported a bit more, because then you'd probably see more creativity in how people try and approach set pieces, instead of just bringing like a huge level of physicality to where all it is putting a ball into an area and everybody just fight for it.
To that point, I don't think there's any more or less bodies in the box now than there was when I was playing. Everybody pile into the box, you'd leave one or two up at best, and after that, everybody's a free-for-all. I think the difference is it's become more orchestrated in that you've now got these set-piece coaches, and you have, while you still have 16 or 18 players in the box, certainly the attacking players have a role to play in where they start, exactly where they go. So it's more orchestrated than it was 20 or 30 years ago when I was playing. And as a result, it looks different. But to that point, again, we put in this on Arsenal today, which Chelsea did the same under Mourinho. Under Mourinho, if you look at Chelsea when they were winning titles, look at how many of their goals came from set pieces, and look at how orchestrated they were. It wasn't at the hands of a set piece coach. Mourinho just figured out, this is what we need to do. If the ball goes deep, somebody's got to run across in front of the goalkeeper. It's not different. And I just feel that while, again, I am as critical of anybody about Arsenal and their over-reliance on set pieces and lack of otherwise attractive football or attacking football, what they're doing, sitting in terms of set pieces, is not new. It's just become the focus. Because it's to the point I was making earlier, because it's so different from Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and, dare I say, Arne Slot of last season. It's just so different from what we become used to. From their perspective, no different from what Arsenal have been doing the last few seasons, where they finished second. This time now, they've just got it a little bit better, or everybody's gone a little bit worse. City still aren't the team that they were 2 seasons ago. Liverpool are not the team that they were last year. And as a result, they find themselves sitting top of the tree as opposed to second.
What do you think, Sid? Is it less fun?
Well, of course, it's less fun if football is being played this way, and that's not necessarily about Arsenal. It's about a general trend. I also think this is cyclical. Shaq's talking about how this happened with him, and there would be loads of players in the 6-yard box. You think back about all the debates about Charles Hughes at the English Football Association, and talking about areas of maximum opportunity and how it was long ball, because he'd worked out that statistically the most moves or most goals came from moves with only 3 passes. So why would you have 15 passes? Why would you open the pitch out? Why would you be technical? No, just launch it into the box. And you go back and you think about the various teams that have done versions of this. Now, obviously, we're talking in very, very general terms here and lumping together teams that are not as stylistically similar as we would like to think. But broadly speaking, it's about clubs looking at it and thinking, well, where's the advantage? And if an advantage is you load a lot of people into the box, it's going to happen. Now, I think there is one other thing that may have changed this a little bit. And certainly I think this is the case in Spain. And I speak without a view of England quite so clearly. But I think what is true is, and I think in the VAR era a little bit, and far be it for me to go down that route of slagging off VAR. No, I'm going to try not to. I'm trying to give an explanation. I'm going to try not to just moan about VAR. But I do think we're in an era in which free kicks are won more easily. So in other words, if you're getting more free kicks, then there's more value in looking at the ways of putting the ball into the box. If you could, and of course, what this does, it doesn't just change the way that you approach the corners, it changes the way that you approach trying to get corners. And I'll give you the best possible example of this. I remember Johan Cruyff, and in a way it's a throwaway line, but it contains a truth that I think is quite interesting. Remember once upon a time when Johan Cruyff was coach of that great Barcelona team, it was suggested to him, but you don't defend well from corners and set pieces. You don't do this work well. You're talking about all this lovely football and stuff, but you're really vulnerable from corners and free kicks and so on. And even his own players said, what do we do about this problem we've got from corners? And Johan Cruyff said, don't commit any corners.
Yep.
And I think what's happening is that if you're getting more corners, if you're forcing corners, and so maybe what's partly happening isn't so much that the corners themselves are different, but that we're seeing a greater volume of them, or at least a greater search to force them in the first place.
Naim, just one last thing on this. Like a couple of years ago, referees would add extra time, could be 10, 15 minutes of injury time. Everyone's like, oh, no, this is too much. And then it seems to have been constrained now. But when you're trying to answer people who are complaining about time wasting with adding more time on, people still complain. So what's the answer?
Yeah, So basically, Dan, what you've just described really well there is the everyday fan, like ourselves, we will always complain about everything. There is no solution to all our problems, Dan. Like the time thing, I need more time, that's too little time. And also you add in the context, well, how does this affect your team? If your team is chasing the game, you need more time. If your team's winning, you need less time. And all of a sudden, everything that came before and this idea of fairness, it immediately goes in the bin. So I think some of the rule makers, IFAB and all this, they can try and find ways to add time, but it will still bring grumbles. Like a player walks off the pitch injured, they've got to wait, 30 seconds? And you always see them on the edge of the pitch waving hands in the air. Why am I not back on the pitch yet? This is taking too long. Unfortunately, it's just one of those areas of the game, in my opinion, which you can never get right. And for whatever they try to do, as soon as it affects you in a negative way, you'll say it's the worst rule ever.
Can you fix it, Shat? They're talking about a minute now, aren't they, for players coming off the pitch?
In short, no. I've seen kind of some of the proposals, and you've got to stay up. Unless that's. I mean, that was floated probably 5 or 6 years ago, where you play an hour's hard time every time the ball goes out to play, the clock stops. Every time somebody goes down, the clock stops. Well, certainly nobody I am aware of involved in the game thought that was a good idea. They wanted to see continuous, as we are traditionally, with 90 minutes, and the game play. I think all these other kind of proposals about how you manage this, and players got to be off the field in a certain amount of time, all that just kind of, we'll end up right back in the same place, having these same conversations. And Nedum is absolutely right. You cannot get this. You cannot get this right. You cannot be fair to everyone, because, as Nedum points out, if your team is behind, there's no amount of time that's the right amount. If your team's in front, you're going to complain if it's 2 minutes. So you just have to do what's right, what you feel is in the best interest of the game at large, and not focus on, again, the kind of narrative and the noise that comes out immediately after each game.